Thanks, Coach.
Andy, you obviously worked on a lot of X's and O's type of stuff, and I might even be fishing for a question here because I'm not sure what your mind is, but how much did you work on mentality? How much did you work on attitude? How much did you work on, life between the ears during the bye week?
That's how the whole week started out, Mike. It's resetting the vision on what it looks like, what the work takes to become a consistent team, that teamwork, and establishing that mentality of what it looks like, from the very beginning of the week. And again, we had some of our most competitive practices that we've had in the past year consistently for a week. And we're continuing to build on that as we evaluate where we're at in terms of mentality, Mike, and obviously growing that. And we have to grow that. And the way we practice is everything. We can sit here and talk about the amount of reps we can get as a team in team run periods and those things. And it may not be where we want it to be, but there's other things that we can do, Mike, to create that mentality at practice as well. And we got to be very strategic about that, especially as we head down the stretch here to improve ourselves.
How do you, I guess, what did you find that was, I don't know if wrong is the right answer. Where did you want to improve the mentality and what did you specifically kind of work on? How do you fix that? How do you work on that?
Well, I think number one, it starts with a purpose. Mentality always starts with a purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? How do we approach every single day? How competitive are we every day? And that starts with how we get here in the mornings. That mentality doesn't start on the field. It starts in the meetings and being prepared. If you're prepared in the meetings, and we do a great job as coaches, and we set that mentality through how we teach the fundamentals and technique, it provides confidence, Mike, and the confidence to play a certain way and use the tools that you've been taught will create the mentality. And that's how we've always built it here. And we've got to get back to reestablishing that. And really, it starts with us as coaches and how we teach and how we build the tools and the fundamentals.
Thank you, Andy.
Andy, in my 9 years covering the team, I haven't heard a whole lot of talk about that kind of stuff, and whether it be the meetings and being late and that kind of stuff, whatever. How surprising has it been to you that you're having to here in the middle of the season, week 8, be dealing with all this kind of stuff that's not the X's and O's?
In terms of what are you talking about?
You've talked about having to reestablish the foundation, and you alluded last game to maybe guys being late to meetings and just other stuff, and what it takes during the week to get to game day, to get to where you want to be. That's just a lot of stuff I haven't frankly heard Coach Harsin or the last year of Coach Pete talk about it in the 9 years I've been here. It's been
a reestablish of the foundation since day number 1, since January, since we got here. Reestablishing what it means to bleed blue, what it means to have the family first, the team first. And what does that family look like? A family it takes great teamwork to make a family, and reestablishing what that looks like every single day and creating a competitive environment where we have a certain purpose and competitiveness when we show up here every single day. And that's what we're working to reestablish. And again, it's been since January when we got here that we sat down with every single one of the players in the program and asked some things that need to change about the program. What has happened and what in the last couple of years that we've done well, and what are the things that we need to cut out, and what do we need to do better? And that's been a primary focus since January when we came in here and we sat down and we asked, what do we need to do a better job of?
What can you tell us about why C.T. Thomas is no longer on the team?
Well, we can say this, just like we released a statement, and we wish him nothing but the best going forward in his future. And as we do with everything else, BJ, what happens here stays here. And again, we wish him nothing but the best going forward.
Thank you.
And I know every game is important, especially every conference game. But when you look at this game, it's really a must win in terms of just bowl eligibility when you consider what's left on your schedule. Have you kind of gotten that message across to your players this week?
No, we're talking about just this week, just 1-0 mentality, winning each and every day and building on this, what we did last week in terms of how we showed up here every single day to work with the competitive spirit that it's going to take, to be successful. And really, at the end as we go down the backstretch here, it is really about each day, each week, and just focusing on that, not worrying about what's out in front of you.
And you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but you said you're not worrying about the future. You're worrying about right now. But assuming you guys do maybe lose another couple of games, is there a tipping point where you start throwing in some of those freshmen that you start getting them some playing time late in the season?
We're getting freshmen playing time right now. Whether Ron, they're backups and they're ready to get in, or we do put them in. Like there are guys that are in the mix each and every week to provide depth, and honestly, guys that have developed behind the scenes that are doing a really good job on all levels of whether it be defense and or offense. There's certain offensive linemen that have done a really good job. Mason Randolph is a guy that has made tremendous strides as an offensive lineman and a young player. On the defensive side of the ball, there's guys on all levels of the defense, and not only in terms of defense, but special teams as well, and how these guys are adding to the depth on special teams and may get their shot to play here down the stretch if needed.
And I'm curious about one of those young guys, Herbert Gums. What stands out to you about him on the field and off the field mentality-wise?
Well, he's got a physical capability now. He's talented. He's explosive. Here in the last 3 weeks, we've been able to increase his rep load coming off of the injury that he had last year. And so we've really been able to increase the amount of reps that he's able to take in team periods consistently. And it's part of his progression back into play and getting him back into games and being able to play him more reps. And he is a talented young man that is explosive, but Ron, I mean, he hasn't played a lot in the last year. So it's going to take a little bit of experience and work to, and he'll keep growing.
How about his mentality and maturity level off the field?
You know what? He's a young man that's learning and growing. He's this is second year in the program. So is for any young guy, he's making strides and improvements and in terms of off the field and in the classroom and doing a good job of that stuff. And obviously the more you get your house in order off the field, the more you can focus and have more consistency on the field.
Thank you.
Jay, Paul J, and Will. And then just a reminder, guys, we're doing 2 questions the first time through so we can get to everybody. Go ahead, Jay.
Andy, how we doing?
What's up, buddy?
Andy, we know that more than anything during the bye, you also needed to try to rest up and get a little healthy. I know that some of this stuff you can only go so far into, but were you guys able to get healthy during the bye week? Are you expecting anybody back? And when you look at a guy like Keikani Okola Holamalia Gonzalez, we're going into the 7th game, week 8.
Right.
We haven't seen him yet. Any update on him too?
No, we're hoping here in the middle of the season to see where he was at and further evaluate his situation. I think we should know here, in the next couple of weeks or so, within the next week, what that looks like. But we were to answer your initial question. There were a ton of guys. I mean, obviously the bye week was huge for guys that have been out, the extended rest, and the guys that have been playing and, playing 7 games already this season, and for certain guys to get the work they needed, but also, it's not nearly the same amount of reps you would have in, a week when you're preparing for an opponent. So again, it was extremely competitive last week, but at the same time, we were able to get some guys fresh.
Andy, I know that you kind of have already addressed this a little bit today, but as you talk about, reestablishing the foundation and what it means to be a Boise State football player, I know that you said that you've addressed it. Have you seen some of the results so far? And I know that it might be a work in progress, but have you seen those results? And are you encouraged by those results that you can get it fixed here and have a solid month of November?
Very encouraged, and by the players' response and the way they responded off the field last week, to the way they competed, off the field and on the field, and the way they understand and the way they're bringing things forward too, now that we can even continue to move forward in terms of, increasing the competitiveness and of how we're preparing, again, both on and off the field. It is, last week was a big week. It was a huge week, and to be able to grow in certain areas that we must grow, to be more consistent with the things that we're talking about that are a part of that foundation. We took a huge step last week, and we started off, today was our first practice coming off a weekend where the guys had, a few days off, and they did a tremendous job out there today.
Thanks, Andy.
Coach, what does Colorado State bring defensively that has you concerned?
Their experience up front. Again, I mean, their D line is full of grads and seniors, and their inside linebackers. Again, in the last month, those guys, they're back to full strength with everyone being back in the lineup, and they've done a great job against the run game since those guys have been back. And not only that, but creating pressure on the quarterback. They have a fair amount of 6-man pressures that we're going to have to be able to handle. And not only the 6-man pressures, but even when they're rushing forward, being able to handle our one-on-ones and compete and be able to give the quarterbacks time to get through the progression.
A lot of teams script the first 15 or so plays of a ball game. With your slow starts in the second half, any thoughts, or do you already script the first 15 plays or so offensively in the second half?
Yes, there's strategy that goes into those things, and there's 2 different plans to put into play that are always prepared depending on how the first half goes. And that's something we talked about, obviously huge. I mean, that's been a deal, right? The consistency starting in the second half. And what does that look like? And to be honest with you, we got guys that really care. And sometimes, when we don't get started off quickly there in the second half, we just got to understand that we don't need to press. We need to stay the course. We need to focus on executing the plan. And that starts with us, obviously, as coaches, and committing ourselves to, this is a game that, as we've spoken about today, involves a lot of mentality and establishing the run game and being able to build from there and provide the confidence, in the operation of the quarterbacks to be able to move the sticks.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Andy, you look at Colorado State's offense. What stands out to you about their tight end, Trey McBride?
Well, he does it all. I mean, there's not a lot of tight ends that are inline tight ends that can come off the ball and establish an edge and set an edge in the run game and then line up at X wide receiver and be able to run the routes he does. I mean, he is, he's considered one of the best tight ends in the nation for a reason. And you put that along with his length and his size and his ability to run. I mean, you just don't see as many tight ends that can do it all like that. This day and age, you see a guy who is more of an H split out tight end or an inline blocker. He has, he's got the full package of being able to establish, again, the edge and all the different things they do with him in the pass game as well.
You look at their special teams numbers with their punting and field goal kicking. How important is winning that battle on Saturday?
It is always important. I mean, special teams and the ability to change the game or create field position it's been a big part of the games that we've been successful in. And so playing at altitude there, the ball's going to fly a little bit more. And they've done a tremendous job, especially with their punt team and being able to flip the field. And we understand that. And, we'll obviously playing at altitude, like we talked about, is going to have that ball flying a little bit more. And there's certain areas of the game where you can take advantage of that.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay, we got time for follow-up. So BJ's got one, and then Jay.
Okay.
Andy, I know it's been 9 days, and we didn't really get a chance to talk to you last week. I just wanted to follow up on the fourth down where you had 10 guys on the field. I know you were frustrated, obviously, after the game, but now that you've had time to figure it out, and what can you say about, I guess, how what that happened, and if that should have been a receiver or a tight end or running back or what happened there? And I guess generally for you, big picture, 7 games in as head coach now, dealing with clock management, game management, that type of stuff. What's this learning process been like for you as you start your head coaching career here?
Well, number one, in your first question, it comes down to us doing a better job of communicating, as a coaching staff, and being able to communicate in that huddle and be clear and concise about the personnel that's going on the field. And we take ownership in that. It doesn't really, at this point, matter to put who was supposed to be on the field or who wasn't. The bottom line is it comes down to us, BJ, doing a better job. And like I said, after the game, when you asked, it's on us. It's on me. And I got to do a better job with that.
Am I good to go, Craig?
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Andy, through the bye week, obviously it's important because you guys can get out and recruit and do things like that. What else did you do in your bye week, despite or other than have those few practices with your team last week? Did you get any family time, and how did the recruiting scene go, as much as you can say, obviously?
Yeah, no. Well, the recruiting was awesome. It was great to get out. There's a lot of young men that are excited to be a part of this program and have been around here enough on visits, unofficial or officially, to see, what we are establishing and building behind the scenes and the direction we're going. And there's a lot of young men that are going to be very impactful in coming in here. And so it was good to get out. It was the first time being out recruiting on the road in 2 years, almost 2 years. So that was a treat in itself to be able to do that. There was a lot of evaluations going on from, on all different levels throughout the course of last week, the beginning of the week, and applying that stuff through our practice week. And then, coming back off the road recruiting, most of us got back at some point, either, early morning Saturday or Saturday during the day. And to be able to see our families for a few hours was huge. And then right back to it on Sunday morning early and finishing the game plan and the prep for this week coming up, but also too, to be able to get out in front and make sure that we have the things organized and plotted out for the rest of this week.
2 years. That's crazy, Andy. Thank you.
Mike Prater, go ahead.
Andy, I know it's not a top priority for you right now, especially in the season, but I wanted to ask about name, image, and likeness and how Boise State as a football program deals with that. We're doing a show this week on it's a first-year thing, and the university could get better, student athletes could get better, Bronco Nation and the biz community can get better. Where do you want to see it get better? Because at the end of the day, I think it comes back to recruiting.
I think it's a matter of opportunities, Mike. As you're in that business, and that's part of what you do. And it's just, there's opportunities everywhere, and creating an infrastructure to take advantage of those opportunities and educating not only the players, but making sure that we're all on the same page. A lot of the guys will get representation to help them with the name, image, and likeness. That's what's happened. I think within the community, people understanding in the community what they can do with the player's name, image, and likeness. There's a lot of people that don't understand that they can directly contact the student athletes to create an image and likeness deals. And whether that's food sponsorships, there's been talks of car sponsorships, supplement sponsorships. Obviously, it's all got to fall within the parameters of the NCAA. But there's different levels and different areas where guys have been able to establish some name, image, and likeness stuff. And I think that will continue to grow. Especially after this first year of working through the process and really understanding what do these opportunities look like, and as we grow our organization and helping the student athletes do so.
Local recruiting. It's a beautiful thing when you can go after the Tyler Crows and the Austin Bolts of the world. But what's your policy? What's your philosophy on local recruiting? Because sometimes if it doesn't go well, sometimes if they're not getting the playing time, sometimes if there are issues, everybody knows who these people are and they all want it to go well. What are the pros and cons of local recruiting?
The pros for us have always been establishing the mentality within the program with the local guys that have grown up around here and that have bled blue since they were kids. And, you're talking about Tyler Gurin, you're talking about guys like that have earned scholarships. And for us, yeah, there's only 11 guys on the field. If those guys had an impact, has Tyler Crow had an impact on special teams? Yes. Tyler has Bolt had an impact on special teams? Yeah. So in terms of it not going well, I'm not sure what you're alluding to there, but it has always been a priority to recruit this state first. I mean, we've had tremendous players come out of the Fruitland area. We've had tremendous players come from all over the state in the smallest towns. We've had them come from Riggins, Idaho. It's been a priority. And so we've had guys that have earned scholarships that have walked on here. We've had guys that we've recruited and put on scholarship. We've had guys that have come here and not earned a scholarship, but still had a huge impact and earned their degree. So, the current guys that are in our program from the state, they're doing a good job.
Andy, thank you.
Looks like Ron has one more. Go ahead.
Coach, in past years, Boise State's always had packages for its backup quarterbacks. This year, we've only seen Hank out there. Is that a product of his grasp of this scheme? Is that a personal preference of yours, just to play one quarterback? What went into that?
In terms of not having packages for multiple quarterbacks?
Yes.
Now, there's always I think there's a consistency that, especially when we're building a run game, that there's, like we spoke about, there's a certain level of simplicity that we got to be able to keep so we can come off and play fast and physical. Where we go from that in terms of building multiple packages for quarterbacks to step in and play, you can see that as a couple different ways. We've had some wildcat situations to get Khalil Shakir back there and be able to handle the ball and do those things. So there's, I think that's partly so of what you're talking about too, is getting the ball in someone else's hands that can create an extra number in the run game. Is that what you're referring to?
Not really. I guess I should ask it more directly. Why isn't Jack Sears playing this year?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were asking. So yeah, let's just be upfront and honest. We don't have to beat around it. Like, you know what? Because Hank has been efficient. Are there things that Hank has to improve on? Yeah. Or should we take Hank out? Hank has done a good job being efficient with the ball. Do we have to eliminate some of the negative yardage plays? Yeah. And as part of that on Hank, there's no doubt. But not all of that is on Hank either. Part of that's on the wide receivers. Part of that's on the offensive line. It's a team game. And if we felt at any point where, Jack has made tremendous strides, especially in the bye week, Jack took a lot of reps. And Jack's ability to improve and be able to execute and get reps with a blue offense, with the first team offense, we got to see and be able to see that happen consistently. And Jack is improving that way. And
is that a detriment to a quarterback sometimes when another quarterback comes in for one or two plays in a game?
Well, I don't think any quarterback likes to rotate. I haven't met very many quarterbacks that like to rotate in and out like that. And that's what you create. We're trying to establish some consistency throughout it. And it's very hard on a quarterback. I think if you would ask them, I don't think there's very many quarterbacks that like to rotate.
Sure. Thanks, man.
It looks like Tom Scott joined us late. So Tom, go ahead and ask a couple of Andy. Tom, can you hear us? I'll try to come back at this time. BJ, you said you had one more. So
yeah, Andy, I just wondered if you could answer the second part of my question, just about being 7 games in as a head coach and just the learning curve for you too, in terms of self-evaluation and dealing with game management, clock management, all kinds of stuff that you maybe hadn't had to do before this year.
Yeah, there's no question. Every day is a learning experience, BJ. Every day is a learning experience that we enjoy. Like, that's the beautiful part about this game, is being able, as much as it is for the players that go out on the field, there's situations where we go on the field and it's play it periods. And we learn as well as coaches every single day on the field. And the evaluation always starts with myself and the coaches and where we go from there and the consistency within that. And so there's plenty of areas that we got to continue to improve. The mentality of this team starts and ends with me. The game operations and the communication in the game starts with me. And that's why I take responsibility to your question. And those areas of learning, there are certain things that we control, and those little things, we've got to make sure that we do an unbelievable job organizing and practicing and preparing the things that we can control. Communication off the sideline, being able to make sure that in those critical situations, we have full control of what we can control. Game management situations, there is debate on what we could have done, would have done, hindsights, all that stuff. Are there things that we have learned through the course of the year? Yeah, there's things that we've learned. Are there things that we would do different? Yeah. Are there things that have been questioned that we wouldn't do different? Most definitely. And so keeping perspective is everything. But having the willingness to learn every single day is a huge part of it.
Thank you.
Tom, looks like you might be there now.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Andy, I noticed that Davis Cutter is listed as the backup on the depth chart at the agency spots. What's the status of guys like Latrell Capel, Shea Whiting, one of the true freshmen? wide receivers, or should we just not read too much into the depth chart?
No, those guys, no, Shea Whiting and those guys, they have done a tremendous job. A few of those guys obviously have been banged up, Latrell being one of those guys. So he's coming along. We're really excited about the progress of Latrell has made. But we have 7 guys that we feel confident about easily. That's one of our deepest positions on the roster. And Davis can play either or position, and that's what he brings to the table, is having the knowledge to play inside or outside. And as we move through this week too, that will be solidified more so in terms of the competitions to see who deserves the right to be the next man in the game, because we have plenty of guys that are capable.
Okay, and special teams were very big in this game last year on the blue turf.
Yeah.
And they were very big for CSU last week at Utah State, obviously. Is this a normal week in special teams prep or an abnormal week?
I mean, special teams are always a huge priority. The games that we've done, we've been successful in, we've been able to have game-changing plays, and what that looks like is a lot of different things, whether it's field position, creating explosive plays, whether that's returns or stopping returns, stopping fakes. I mean, every week it's about finding a way to change the game on special teams.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
All right, Coach. Thanks for the time. We'll see you later in the week. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good week. We'll see you guys.